Module number 6, Project Schedule Management, Module Overview. Project Schedule Management includes the processes required to manage the timely completion of the project. What we will cover in this module will be 6.0, Project Schedule Management, Module Overview, which is this video. 6.1, Plan Schedule Management, the process of establishing the policies, procedures and documentation for planning, developing, managing, executing and controlling the project schedule. 6.2, Define Activities. This process of identifying and documenting the specific actions to be performed to produce the project deliverables. 6.3, Sequence Activities. The process of identifying and documenting relationships among the project activities. 6.4, Estimate Activity Durations. The process of estimating the number of work periods needed to complete individual activities with the estimated resources. 6.5, Develop Schedule. The process of analysing activity sequencing, durations, resource requirements and schedule constraints to create the project schedule model for project execution and monitoring and controlling. 6.6, Control Schedule. The process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project schedule and manage changes to the schedule baseline. Please study figure 6.1 on page 174, which provides an overview of the project schedule management process, along with the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs. Key concepts for project schedule management. One of the key sections of the previous module, Project Scope Management, was to create the Work Breakdown Structure and Work Breakdown Structure Dictionary. And the main deliverables of the Work Breakdown Structure were decomposed down to work packages. And we learned that work in a work package, and indeed in the Work Breakdown Structure, is talking about deliverables, not activities. The Work Breakdown Structure is entirely deliverable based, and so all the entries on the chart are nouns. It is in this module that we will decompose work packages down into the activities required, and we will do this in 6.2, Define Activities. These activities include estimates for effort and duration, which we will do in 6.4, Estimate Activity Durations. This will be the raw material from which we will build our schedule in 6.5, Develop Schedule. The PMBOK guide tells us on page 175, project scheduling provides a detailed plan that represents how and when the project will deliver products, services and results defined in the project scope, and serves as a tool for communication, managing stakeholders' expectations, and as a basis for performance reporting. The project management team selects a scheduling method such as critical path or agile approach. Then the project-specific data, which are the activities, plan dates, durations, resources, dependencies and constraints, are entered into a scheduling tool to create a schedule module for the project. The result is a project schedule. Okay, so the PMBOK guide says that for a simple process, one person can do it themselves over a short period of time, do the project schedule. But I think in reality you'll find that in the majority of projects the schedule is created by a single process, because modern scheduling does all the calculations for you, and you can see visually on the computer screen how everything links together, and you can immediately see the results of any changes. But within the PMBOK system, and you'll find exactly the same in Prince 2, that there is a logical pattern to the inputs, tools and techniques and outputs, and a logical flow through the processes. And if you try to treat it as a single process, you can't understand what is happening. And although your scheduling software appears to do all this as a single process, in reality, your scheduling software is going through similar steps many times over that the PMBOK guide or the Prince 2 guide are using. Every time you move an activity on your computer screen, you're performing a cycle of progressive elaboration without even realizing it. The PMBOK guide warns us not to squeeze everything up too tight, because then you can't make minor adjustments as you learn more about the project. Trends and emerging practices in project schedule management. It should come as no surprise that in the area of scheduling, there's an increasing move towards iterative, agile methods. instead of planning everything out years ahead like a royal wedding. And you need to be more flexible, and a project is being delivered a piece at a time without having a predetermined order of every single piece, or even knowing in detail what the individual pieces will be. This technique was originally viewed with great suspicion in the project management profession, with many claiming this was not real project management and it was suited to just some information technology projects. But it is real project management. It's just a different approach, and there seems to be a few projects that it could not be used with. Almost anything could benefit from an agile approach. It reminds me here of a quote by Henry Ford. If I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have asked me for faster horses. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should not discuss a project with your customer. That's just crazy talk. But what this highlights is that people don't actually know what they want. As I said earlier in the course, you need to find out what people want rather than what they have asked for. In Henry Ford's case, people didn't actually want faster horses, they wanted faster transport, and using faster horses was the only way they could see it happening within their sphere of knowledge. Henry Ford created something very different which fulfilled their actual needs beyond their imagination. Why am I saying this? For two reasons. Firstly, most people can't see too far ahead. Many think they can, and while they will argue black and blue, they know every detail of what they want, but every project is a learning experience for everybody on it, and the customer doesn't know what they want until they start to see the projects. Or I should say, until they start to see the products. Agile methods actually learn from the customer, and it lets you make many in-flight adjustments. And secondly, agile methods compared to the waterfall project management is like a car compared to a horse. Instead of trying to defend the use of horses, maybe we should learn to drive a car. As the PMBOK guide explains on page 177, the requirements are documented in user stories that are prioritized and refined just prior to construction, and the product features are developed through time-boxed periods of work. This approach is often used to deliver incremental value to the customer, or when multiple teams can concurrently develop a large number of features that have interconnected dependencies. This scheduling method is appropriate for many projects indicated by the widespread and growing use of adaptive life cycles for project development. The benefit of this approach is that it welcomes changes throughout the development life cycle. On-demand scheduling using a Kanban board system is also an agile method, but uses a resource leveling type of approach, so teams are kept working at a reasonably steady rate, similar to lean manufacturing. For considerations of agile adaptive environments, please see the PMBOK guide, page 178. That brings us to tailoring requirements. A list of things to consider in tailoring, without guidance on how to tailor your project, is given in the PMBOK guide on page 178. Project schedule management, before the release of PMBOK 6th edition, was called project time management. PMI said that the reason they changed the name was that they decided that time progresses at a steady rate, and so it's not possible to manage time. All you can actually manage is what happens within time, that is the schedule. I don't actually agree with this change. I think it's a change just for the sake of change. The PMBOK guide prides itself on reflecting the opinion of countless thousands of project management practitioners and academics, but I believe that most of these people use the term time management, which means in this area the PMBOK guide is no longer reflecting the opinion of countless thousands of project management practitioners and academics. What they're hoping for is that the opinion of countless thousands of project management practitioners and academics will gradually change to reflect the PMBOK guide. Only time will tell whether or not it's a good decision, but in the meantime it has two impacts on you. Firstly, I would strongly recommend that you study materials for the 6th edition PMP exam. They're written specifically for the 6th edition of the PMBOK guide, because this is only one of many changes, and you run the very real risk of confusing yourself with study materials that are not fully aligned with the exam. And in the exam you need all the help you can get. The second possible impact, and I've seen this one in earlier releases of the PMBOK guide, the exam itself may not be fully up to date. It sort of lags behind the PMBOK guide updates. For example, there is a possibility of getting an examination question that mentions time management. So just be aware of that. If you see time management on the examination, remember that that is schedule management. There are a number of software packages which produce a project schedule, and less experienced project managers, I've said this many times before, often refer to this as the project plan because it is their main tool for managing projects. It is not a project plan, it is a project schedule. Please do not make this mistake. A project plan can manage integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communication, risk, procurement and stakeholders, among other things. But a project schedule can just manage the schedule. I've had project managers in my courses tell me that they can manage cost and resources with their project schedule, but that's not true. A schedule program will let you assign costs and resources to activities and can help you perform resource leveling and so on, but it is not managing costs and resources. For example, project resource management includes processes to identify, obtain, train and develop resources. You can't do that with a schedule. Okay, on a project schedule, it's not a project plan. The next point to note is that a schedule produced by project scheduling software is not the same as a project schedule in the PMBOK guide. It's similar in some ways, but it's not the same. The PMBOK guide expects you to identify the activities, estimate the time and cost for each activity, and decide which order they need to be performed in and the dependencies, which can be done in parallel, and some may be done sequentially. You then drop a precedence diagram in, also called activity on node or CPM network, to work out leads, lags, float, critical path and compress the network, then copy this information to the project schedule. Yes, that's exactly what I do. Said no project manager ever since about the 1970s. The precedence diagramming method, which we often call the CPM method, was invented in 1961. We have come a long way since 1961 and PMI needs to realise this. But until they do, all of the above will be on the exam and you will actually have to draw a precedence diagramming method network in the exam. And just in case there are any Prince2 practitioners watching this video and having a bit of a laugh at PMI for using outdated techniques, Prince2 2017, the latest version, still uses PDM Networks 2 to develop their schedules in the same way as the PMBOK guide does. They use an alternate name, the alternate name activity on node, but it's exactly the same. And you will find that, if you don't believe me, on pages 111 and 112 of Managing Successful Projects with Prince2 2017 edition. And this brings us to the end of 6.0 Project Schedule Management. The next video is 6.1 Plan Schedule Management. And as always, please read the corresponding chapter in the PMBOK guide before watching the video.